Hello, this is Lisa Russick with the podcast We're All Psychic. It's just me today, and I have asked several people today if they would like to do a podcast with me, and they all have plans. I guess that's why we schedule way in advance. Yeah, I still think we're all psychic, of course. So I'm wanting to do this podcast today because we haven't had many podcasts, and I want to talk about music. Music. I am in Nashville now, the Music City. I live here now with my boyfriend Eric in his house and with two roommates. And I have always loved music. Now, if you've listened to this podcast, you'll know that I did a lot of audio work and I was a performer when I was younger. I still write and play, but I don't do it for money or professionally, just for fun. And Eric's gotten me to play a lot more. So we actually played a show, kind of impromptu show, at a pool party about a week ago. And I was on keys. They pulled a keyboard out and they pulled a guitar out, and Eric and I just played songs, and I didn't know them, but we did okay. I think we had a lot of fun. And everybody in the city, one of the most amazing things someone said to me at that party that just like kind of made my head explode a little bit or implode was this wonderful hostess said, "We are so lucky to know musicians." And I was like, "What? Who says that?" And it's kind of like makes me think of someone saying, "We're so lucky to know psychics." Will people ever say that? "I'm so lucky I'm a psychic." Right? We're all psychic, so we're all lucky. Is it something that could happen? I don't know. But I know that that was really fun to do, playing that music. So this goes back to a podcast, I think my third podcast with Portia Pride. And we talked about music, and we talked about music with a lot of musicians. But I want to talk about my experiences with music and juju and the jujo, the magic, the energy, the vibrations, the resonance. Yeah, the resonance. So when I talked with Portia Pride, we touched on empathy in music and how now, if you're new, an empath is someone who feels someone else's feelings as though they are their own, which I think we all do. And some of us have blocked it out, some of us can't block it out. That's just something for you to dig down into if you don't know about it. But with music, it expresses the feelings that other people can actually feel our feelings when we're playing in like an audience or someone in a room listening to us play. In my experience when I was younger, I was very afraid to perform. I didn't like it. It was intimidating. I was scared all the time anyway. If listened to about my past when I was younger, I was very anxious. And I ended up going to audio school when I was 26 because I thought I was too old to be a musician. I've been running audio at a club and I loved it. Oh my gosh, I loved it. It's Old Crossroads in Huntsville, Alabama. And I went to audio school. I did talk about this in another podcast. But I went to audio school and I learned so much cool stuff, and I'm a total tech geek, so it was really awesome for me. And I met my first husband there, I made some friends there at audio school, and I learned amazing, amazing things. And I actually got to record my songs on professional gear. That was right around when Pro Tools was happening. It became a thing, like a big, big thing, Pro Tools in 2001 and 2002 when I was in school. And I also learned how to run sound on these like huge boards like SSLs, which is a really expensive soundboard. And it's like 2 miles long and has probably about 16,000 dials and buttons, and it's pretty fabulous. And there was another soundboard that was I think, let's say it's a tube soundboard or something weird like that. It was an old soundboard. And that's the main one I recorded on until I got into Pro Tools. And then once I found Pro Tools and figured out the interface, I was freaking thrilled because I got to write. I got to record the songs I had written a long time ago at that time. So, like the song that I used for the beginning of this podcast is called You Are Here, and I wrote it in Phoenix before I started school, and then I recorded it a couple years after I left the conservatory. I never recorded any of the songs off this concept album I had written in one night on my acoustic guitar and my 4-track because I didn't know how I wanted to do it, and I needed a lot of instruments and stuff like that for what I really wanted to do with it. And I did collect all that equipment after school and wrote the songs, wrote a lot, wrote, I had a read red leather, yellow leather, red leather. So I learned so much at school, and when I got to record my songs, I always was like, these aren't good, these aren't good. I'm not self-critical, but like I can do better. I can that little mess up, this little mess up, the perfectionist. But really when I listen to other people's music, if there's imperfections, I find it more beautiful, it makes more sense, if that makes sense. Because, the flow of consciousness in music, yes, we're in time, we're in a time and a beat, but there's a stream of consciousness going on when you play music with other people, especially if you jam. And by jam, I mean you don't have a set chord structure. You might have, if you're a musician, you'll understand this, and if you're not, you probably will. You might have like a C, G, A kind of thing going on, the chords C, G, and A. So you might have those chords when you're jamming, but everybody else will just kind of rock around the chords and do their thing on their instruments and dance. It's kind of like the souls are dancing when you jam or when you play with someone else, play music with somebody else, even with yourself, if you're playing by yourself. And you just have this feeling like it's really weird. Like I said, yes, music is time, but it feels like when I'm playing music, I'm in time. Like I'm flowing with the moment every time I play music, especially with other people. And I can feel things from them. And this is where the empathy thing comes in. I think if we can, me as a performer, if I could get better at it someday, next life, I guess. But for a performer to project their empathy into the audience, they're like, I watch Eric do, and his band, Blues Box One, they all just project their energy into the audiences. And that's the empathy. That's empath, the empathic energy of rocking, rock and roll, or whatever kind of music. There was an opera singer last night that I got to see, and there was this woman who played amazing jazz on a guitar, kind of jazzy. I guess I don't know what you'd call the genre she played. And everybody who plays music, they have their own sound, they have their own way, they have their own voice imprint that nobody else has if they sing, and they have their own ideas about how music goes in their minds, in their experiences, in their, what do you call them? What do they call it? Influences in the music industry, in your influences. How does this relate to psychic other than empath? Empaths projecting out into the great beyond for all of us to feel their wonderful rock and roll juju. Well, there's a lot more. You can think about like the frequencies of the sound waves. For example, well, first I'll let you know, if you don't know, the human ear typically hears from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz range of frequencies. And after below 20 hertz, we hear nothing, we just feel it. And then, oh, Gander, what are you doing? I saw Gandhi, Gandhi, Gandalf caught my attention. And below that, you just feel it, and above 20 kilohertz, what you can hear, you can't hear the sound above that usually, and but what you can hear is how the frequencies, like say from a cymbal, the higher echelons of sound from a cymbal we can't hear, but we can hear how it mixes into the other frequencies of the instruments playing in a band, say. And that can be with guitar. All these instruments we play, like, have higher and lower frequency, especially the higher frequencies that we can't hear. When they mix in, it really makes a difference. So in audio, when you listen to a CD or something compressed into a digital format, usually it's going to be in between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. But if you do live sound, you get all those other kilohertz up above 20 kilohertz that resonate with the music below it. And we can hear the difference in the quality of something that's compressed between the 20 kilohertz and the 20 hertz, say on a CD, and then listen to something without that and without that restriction. Analog doesn't have that restriction, for example. If you were to record onto a tape, like a reel-to-reel tape, and then run it all through hardware, not Wi-Fi or technology and computers, no compression, then you also get that effect of having the frequencies coming down into the rest of the sound. And if you do this, like if you want to try this sometime, I would recommend trying it, get a CD and get a record of two things you like and make sure the record has been recorded, like an old one, like a Doors album or something. Take that old record and listen to it on a record player. It's all wired digitally. I mean, sorry, all wired analog. All wired analog. So then you would also hear the mix of the frequencies dropping in from where we cannot actually hear them, but only how they mix in with the other frequencies. So what does resonance have to do with psychic podcast music? I've already talked about some things, but the resonance, we do know these frequencies about sound, just sound, with our sensor of an ear, and what happens in there with the effect of sound as our perception hears it. It's hard to say to tell a deaf person what sound is like, or a blind person what color is like. And I think I've talked about this many times on the podcast, but our senses, it only makes sense that we experience life in this huge way more than just these traditional five senses. That's where you can look at these frequencies, say, from a band playing with the cymbals live, the frequencies you can't hear mixing down into the rest of the music to make it full, to make it original, to make it a sound of their own. That doesn't translate necessarily into digital. It's just like life. We have a million frequencies all around us all the time. And we have so many. Every one of us has these huge imaginations. We can imagine anything we want. Why not imagine another sense or other senses? Why not look at yourself and things you've done and things you've felt and the idea of all these frequencies in the air, in the world, on the ground, in the trees, in the fire, frequencies everywhere, moving things, changing things, time flowing. And with music, time flows and stops and stands and dances and everything. And so, if you're really wondering if you're psychic and considering, like, is she really, is she just trying to make some kind of noise? No, is she talking, should she really believe this? Is she crazy? And ask yourself what you really believe. Look at your experiences and think about the frequencies. Think about the times you emotionally felt something. It has to be a frequency. Can't we measure that somehow? When you feel an emotion, we don't know. We haven't decided what emotion comes from, as far as I know, with science. Emotion is the basis of connection. And music also can bring us together in a connection with the rhythms, with the timeless feeling. And I think every time I go dancing and I'm seeing a great band, I just forget everything and I'm dancing. I can feel the people around me dancing, think about that too. You're not bumping into someone all the time. If you have your eyes closed and you're dancing, you can feel them around you. How's that? How's that work? How's that work? Anyway, with that, I'll leave you, consider your own thoughts about sound and frequency, and maybe you'll figure out a way to measure stuff that we haven't yet in certain areas, or what to look for. Maybe you'll figure out how emotions work as a vibration, as a frequency. I love you guys. Thank you so much for always listening, and have a wonderful time wherever you are. I'd like to thank my sponsor, Everclear. Everclear is an advice app and website where you can get advice from psychics and empaths to get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. And I'm an advisor at Everclear under the name Leesa P, Leesa P. And you can find a link to my page on www.weareoutpsychic.com. Misty wasn't able to do a recording today, but hopefully we will soon. And I have a nice little surprise to let you know about. Mr. Eric, my boyfriend, is going to do a podcast about what it's like to date a psychic. Because I asked him, is it any different? He went, oh. And he says, yeah, I'll do that podcast. And we may have someone else joining us. Who knows? I've asked a couple of people if their guys, a couple of women friends, if their men would be interested in joining us. But they're like, I don't think so. We'll see, though. You never know. Might have more than just Mr. Eric to tell you what it's like to date a working psychic. And at that, again, I want to say peace to you and love and have a wonderful time wherever you may be. Goodbye.